One of the most influential manufacturers of recording tapes was 3M with their Scotch brand. They started out in the late 40s with a series of tapes, both paper-backed and acetate-backed. And I want to show you all of the Scotch tapes in this video, but we're going to start with the famous model, the 111, which was an acetate-backed tape. This is an early package of the 111. I think this dates to like 1951. You can see this early design on the package with the three-hole reel. This is really the tape that started it all. It was made from 1948 to 1972, so 1973. So 25 years of tape production, which is a long time. So this is typically what the Scotch tapes look like in the day. Later on, they went to this more colorful design with an orchestra on it. Later on, the design was a little bit plainer, and it became like this with this black just description of the tape formula. This was the final design of the packaging, and there was a couple of other iterations, I'm sure, but through 25 years, there was a wide range. So 111 is the formula name for that famous acetate standard tape. There was a polyester version that's called the 102, which we have available here too in our store. It's really the tape that started it all. They innovated for being one of the first companies to start or bring out an extra play or long play tape. On the acetate side, that is the 190. You can tell because it has a famous red oxide, Scotch red oxide. It's the only tape that ever had this red oxide, which is the 190, and the famous polyester version, which is the 150. The 150 is very common. You find them in garage sales. This name 150, I guess. I'm not really sure whether they meant this, but everybody else that made 150s used the 150 as the reference. This is the reference tape for being long play, being 150% of 100. But I think that's not what Scotch did, because the acetate version was 190. So it's interesting how they used that terminology differently, because there was a Sony 150 and a TDK 150 and a Fuji 150. So those are really the tapes that started it all. There was also a Scotch 120, which was the first high output tape, but it was not low noise, and that's has kind of its own classification. It was used a little bit for professional use, but it was also made until the early 1970s. A couple of interesting innovations that they had during this time. They were really the first to spearhead the low noise tape, which was the Dynarange series 202 and 203. That was very interesting. At the same time, they also brought out the first triple length tape, which was the 290. This has a 0.5 mil very thin backing with also a thin oxide coating. So you have a very low output. Your actually output is minus 9 dB less than the 911. Than the 111. So it's very low output tape, but people used it for background noise and long recordings. But it was also one of the first triple play tapes made. It's kind of innovative for its time. What you'll also find is in the 60s, you also have this kind of mid-century modern design on their Tartan series tape. This is a tape with a very similar performance to the 111, maybe slightly better, not much better. It was released really as a consumer-grade tape, like the first stereo tape for home use. And there was a whole series of these, which included acetate 1200 foot, 1800 foot, or standard play, long play, and also polyester long play and double play. There was no polyester Tartan series a single play tape. You'll notice that these tapes, the early generation had a blue color. And it also had a blue color on these on the later generations when they were packaged with this color. Not really that popular, not really that great or noteworthy, but they are available. So it's something to be interested about. From there, the next innovation from Scotch that I'd like to talk about is their 206 and 207 tapes. These were very popular, also popular studio tapes at the time. Those gap years between the end of low noise and when the high output tapes from Ampex came out, 206, 207 was really used from like 69 to 73, 74. There's a lot of famous recordings on 206. One of them, I actually had somebody bring me a safety master of ELP's Tarkus album, and I listened to that. That was done on 206. The sound is fantastic. A great tape, very popular and very noteworthy. One of the first tapes made with backcoding and with low noise, high output. So a very, very good tape for that. It was really around that time, in 1972-73, Scotch rationalized their entire tape production. All of the old formulas disappeared, and they simplified their range to, on the low end, they had their Dynarange tapes, which was their low noise tape, which was a slight upgrade from their older 203, 202 Dynarange. They also produced the Dynarange in double play and in triple play, which they did not do in the past. So they also superseded their other tape formulations. It's really the first time they made a big major change in their tape line by discontinuing all their old tapes. So these this 212 series, the Dynarange series, was also brought out as the low-cost Highlander series. In these boxed series, they were produced with leader tape and a little bit nicer box. The Highlander had this without leader tape in a lower cost box, and there was also a pro version. They also split out the tape into pro versions and consumer versions, and the pro versions were numbered a little differently, although the tape was the same. From there, the next thing that Scotch did was bring out their classic series, which was a higher output tape than their 207. They also brought out the Scotch 250 for studio tape. I believe the 250 and classic have a similar performance. The 250 is a classic tape. A lot of famous recordings made on 250 as well. Later, that classic became the Scotch Master, and then later a Master XS, and these were the last consumer tapes that were made by Scotch. Scotch continued with professional tapes, as I mentioned, 226, 227, 250. Then they ended their production with the 900 series tapes, which covered all those performance ranges. One of the things that's interesting about Scotch is they had two other countries where they produced tapes. They produced tapes in Italy. They are a little bit different. The tapes in Italy actually come with that same BASF style box, probably from the same vendor, except they have 3M molded on the top. This is a Scotch Dynarange, slightly different reel with a single thread, same kind of design as the others. I discovered that I guess at some period there was a huge ramp up in tape production, and a lot of the Dynarange sold in the United States was actually the stuff made in Italy. So there's a lot of this Italian tape in the United States that comes with these plastic boxes, right? And the later version, they came in these plastic boxes with these really funky white reels, which you don't really see here very often. They didn't sell them here. So if you see these, it's because somebody imported them themselves. But the Italian tapes were high quality and were highly recommended. Also interesting is that they had a joint venture with Sumitomo 3M in Japan, and they made the whole series of tapes there. They made 111 there, they made 150, they made the Dynarange tapes there. Later on they made the 206s, 207s, They started making a little bit of their other numbers. One of the interesting Japanese tapes is JMT 3100. That's Japanese master tape. It's actually a similar formula that was actually made also by Maxell and Sony for the same tape, which is actually very interesting that you can get the similar specifications and performance from three brands. But that's JMT 3100. The tape from Japan was good tape. There are some issues with some of the 207/218 tape. We find that some of that tape suffers from white powder syndrome. But the Scotch tapes were very popular and very high quality, and a lot of that can be used today, especially the early tapes. One of the most long-lived tapes, like the Ampex tapes, is the Scotch 150. That tape seems to last forever. So it has a very good reputation for longevity. Even though it's not the best quality tape at the time, I feel the Ampex tapes were better, and some of the BASF tapes in the standard tape range was better than the 150. Nevertheless, the 150 has a strong reputation for reliability. So they did a wide range of tapes, different performance grades, and many of them are highly recommended.